Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Just got off the line with a guy I met down in the Sertão in Brazil about this time a year ago, a little later, Dominic Rohner, who had a paragliding school for a long time in Zurich and sold that recently and is just enjoying the fruits of that labor and traveling around and kite surfing and flying and learning acro. He's been flying for 21 years. And we just had a really great conversation about all of that and his school and his scariest flight and his most memorable flights. There are a lot of those. He's traveled all over the world, done some pretty amazing things. And I really clicked with him when I was down in Brazil last year. Thought it'd be really fun to have him on the show. He listens to the show all the time and recently reached out, and I was like, hey, let's have a chat. And that was super fun. But we talk about a lot of things we always talk about on this show, but kind of a different perspective. So safety and risk and coming back from fear injuries, because he had a little bit of a scary incident about 11 years ago. But you can tell in his voice, just super passionate about flying. Recently spent a bunch of time in Organia with learning acro, which is something I was just recently doing up here in Oregon. So talk a little bit about that. But a lot of cool lessons here, really fun conversation. I think you're going to laugh out loud in a few places in this one. So, without further delay, please enjoy this conversation with Dominic Rohner. Dominic, so awesome to have you on the show. We met down in a pool in Quixada and doing some flying together in Brazil about this time last year, a little bit later. I guess that was in November. But really cool to catch up with you. And you've been doing a lot of traveling since then, and I want to hear about that. But I thought we started off a little bit differently than in any of the other shows. A lot of people have been asking for stories and that kind of thing. And I thought I might ask you first the scariest experience you've ever had under a wing.
Oh man, Gavin, I've been flying first, thanks for having me on the show. I was pretty surprised when you asked me. I'm not a famous pilot. I've been flying for quite a while and done a few things. My scariest moment, Gavin, I've been flying for 21 years. I think I've had quite a few. Probably one of the scariest ones. It's not nice to talk always about injuries, but probably when I broke my back, about 11 years ago, crashing with my wing. One must have been the most scary flight, most likely. Yeah.
Well, you can't leave us on that note. You got to give us the details. How did it? What happened? What led up to it? What were usually that kind of thing is a series of small mistakes and then one big one. Is that how that one went?
I actually already that's the really painful thing. I already was a paragliding instructor back then, and I did about everything I always not to do. It was, as you said, a series of bad things I decided to do. I was going to do a cross-country flight in St. Moritz in Engadine, launching from Corvaci. It's a pretty high mountain, 3,500 meters. I think you passed there on the X-Alpha.
Yeah, I know it well.
Right.
Yeah.
In my eyes, it's probably the most beautiful valley at all, completely in Switzerland with all those lakes. And I know the takeoff because I used to live up there for two years. And since it's on a glacier, I knew it must have changed. I wanted to go up there the day before just to check out the launch, have a short flight and go rest in the valley. I went up there. I was already I didn't feel well. I was half sick, maybe a little fever, which was already the first mistake. I knew the day was thunderstormy. There were thunderstorms approaching from the west. Second mistake. I had to walk a little bit up to take off, which took me maybe half an hour. And then I decided, weather was deteriorating. And I thought, man, I've been flying for over 10 years and it's always been fine. It may as well this time. So prepared, launched, flew over the valley. And then I noticed it's not good because over the valley, remember, I was launching on 3,500 meters, and over the valley it was still rising. It was just going up over the lakes, pretty heavy. And yeah, I knew time is playing against me. I did spirals over the lake, and I saw them kite surfing down there with wind from the south. And further down, I was zero penetration, but towards west, so complete different direction. Was still going up, so I had to spiral. And I was already thinking then, well, what's the better place to go into, lake or paddock? And you know how it is. I mean, flying on these altitudes, at big boots, big gloves, lots of clothes. The lake is really cold. The lake's really cold, like 12 degrees all year, or in that time of the year. So I decided, whatever happens, I'm not going into the lake. So I went over the grassy area. Then it all started. I knew I have wind from the south further down and strong wind from the west, and there's got to be a strong wind shear. Then it all happened, and my wing just collapsed and went into deep stall every now and then. And it was over that grassy spot, still a couple of 100 meters high, and it was going up and down. And I thought of, should I throw reserve? Should I not? Because I was really scared of, when I throw the reserve, that's it. I can just wait and see what happens. And with the thunderstorm approaching and lifting air, and I was not too keen to throw the reserve too early and not knowing what happens then. So about maybe 300 meters above ground, I had control of the wing, and I thought, well, now I've got it. I can land that wing, and it looked pretty good until I was about, I don't know, 100. It's hard to say, 100 or 50 meters above ground, and again it went into, it's like a deep stall, it must have been just a turbulence, like the wind changing direction 180 degrees and coming from behind. So it's just sliding back deep stallish. And I remember thinking, well, reserve or no reserve? I decided not to throw the reserve because I was scared to throw the reserve. And in that time, I don't have the brake handles, and my glider catches air and shoots. I'm stuffed, that's going to be really bad. And I decided just to kind of keep my wing overhead, and I looked down and already knew it's a bit too fast. It's not that fast. It's not free fall, but it's fast. And first landed on my feet and rolled up over my bum, and still too hard. And had two vertebrae. Broken. But I was really lucky. It was just a compression fracture. I didn't even have to operate. And I was really surprised when the guys at the hospital told me 2 days later I should get up.
Really?
It was still really painful. Wow. It was get up and just take it easy for three months and don't lift, just don't do anything. But I was surprised. I was really, really lucky. So I did so many things wrong that day. That was probably the most painful thing of it all. Yeah.
Super educational. I mean, I guess
not being an unexperienced pilot, you should really know better,
Yeah, but that's always 20/20 hindsight, I mean, how many times have we all flown in those kind of conditions? And, then sometimes you get lucky and you're like, I sorted it out.
That was the problem. You ask me how you've had scary accidents. If I'd have to think, there were probably many.
Yeah. I was training with Aaron Duragati and Eric Reinfeld. Who else? There was somebody else with us then. I can't remember. Just a couple weeks before the 2015 X Alps, and we were right in that zone. The next valley over to the east, right on the border, switching. So you go over from the Brenta that year. We went from the Brenta over that pass. I can't remember it. And then there's a lake. And then there's another pass. The
Bernina Pass.
The Bernina Pass.
You went up to
exactly the Bernina. It's where
and then Bernina Pass. Yeah.
It's where Michael Vici threw his reserve that year. Actually, in the race. It's a really dicey spot. And we the three of us, and I think Andra Prochaska was there. There was Aaron's supporter, who's a really, really, epic acro pilot, very good cross-country pilot. And we hiked up to hopefully fly. And when we got up to launch, it was just really wrong. It was dumping into the valley, and it was just nasty. And it was just a training day, so I didn't see any point. And I just walked down, and Eric and Aaron both flew. They both had quite scary flights, and they just flew down to the valley. It was a 5-minute flight. It was no big deal. It was basically just to not walk. But it was interesting, like watching that. There was this weird. I've been quite a student of avalanche safety in the last few years because I do a lot of backcountry skiing, and they talk about, the heuristic decision-making process where we make decisions that aren't logical and why we do it. We have all the information, and yet we still make an emotional decision. And that was one of them where there was surprisingly, there was a lot of peer pressure on me, not from them. No one was suggesting that I fly. It was clearly not very flyable and not good, and we weren't really gaining anything. We'd already done the hike, and those guys had these really scary flights, and I thought, well, God, if I'm going to be in the X-Alps, I need to be able to do stuff like that. But I was like, yeah, but the penalty points here are super high, and it sounded like for you that day they were also super high. Like you weren't really going to gain much by flying that day, but we still fly, and we do it all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really hard to distinguish in between what we like to believe conditions are and what they actually are.
Yeah.
In that case, I actually knew it was bad, but I was just kind of convinced because it always went well during 10 years. I thought that day, it's going to be another day. It's a bit dodgy, but it'll be all right, Somehow it'll be all right. That's just not the way to think when you play in the sky. Yeah.
When you look back on that, I mean, obviously the first bad choice was to fly, but let's assume you got to live that day over and you still chose to fly. What would you do differently? Would you land in the lake?
In the aftermath, I should have thrown the reserve when still more than 100 meters.
Really? Even in that kind of wind?
Probably I should have.
Because I've had a few instances like that too. I had a very similar thing happen to me in the Rhone. I was trying to do the classic Fiche FAI triangle where you go down to and then up to Zermatt and then home. And I was up in the Zermatt area where this huge cell was dropping out over Zurich, and I should have just top landed. It would have been fine. But I tried to get back to the Rhone, and when I got there, the gust front was coming down from the Grimsel and blah blah blah. It was just scary as hell. But I thought the same thing as I was coming down to the ground. I mean, I had plenty of backstop. I was over a huge field, but man, it was honking. It was really windy, and it was one of these things where half the time my wing was totally out of control, So I mean, it was kind of like, God, this is like 50-50 here. And should I throw my reserve? And I didn't, and I got lucky. I ended up just landing right on my feet, and it was fine. But I was nervous to throw my reserve because that kind of wind. I mean, then you're really out of control.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you're at the whim of the power lines and the houses and all the other stuff. And
exactly. Once you throw a normal reserve, even in these conditions, it may even be a Rogallo. There's not much you're doing in a Rogallo when it's blowing that hard.
Yeah, and then you got to deal with your wing. If you I'm pretty convinced. A good friend of mine, Cody, is written up quite a bit about this. I think if you fly with a Rogallo on XC kit, you really got to have a cutaway. You've really got to be able to ditch your main. If you throw low, if you throw high, no big deal. You'll be able to, get your main wing disabled. But if it's enabled, they're going to downplane, and I think you're going to hit just as hard as you hit.
Hey man, I was just in Oregon, and first time in my life being a little bit of an acro pilot, or trying to be at least, and everyone there, all the good pilots now have cutaway systems, and I really wonder. They have the AVA cutaway system now has a base system and two additional whatever you put in, normal reserves. But even for ambitious cross-country flying, seriously, I think the future, in my eyes, will be cutaway systems.
Totally.
It's just such a perfect way of getting off your glider, and it works so quickly. Every time I saw those guys going down on their cutaways, I was just like, this is perfect.
Yeah. No, it's
20, 30 meters, and you fly away, and everything is in perfect order.
Yeah.
How nice is that? And I don't know why this hasn't come over to cross country harnesses yet. I think
it's definitely the future. It's definitely coming. I think it's I think the problem still now, if you're in this hike and fly mode, it's the weight issue. But I do know that not many, but there are some comp pilots, because we don't care about weight when we're flying comps, that that are doing that are flying with cutaways. And it's mandatory. I think that's just definitely the future. I mean, we have to keep making this sport safer, and that's the acro guys are proving that it works.
Absolutely.
So tell me about before we get to your acro stuff, we started on this kind of scary note. Let's flip the switch. Tell me, when you think back to, you said 21 years of flight, I think, what's the flight that most stands out in your mind?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that question. And I thought about it. I didn't come to a flight. It's for me, flying has so much diversity, and I've had epic moments, doing hundreds of wagga maybe at Dune du Pilat or some other soaring. It's got to be a dune spot, sand is just perfect. It's so nice. It may have been top landing on a volcano in Tanzania with a friend, and then landing down in the valley in between giraffes, canoes, and all these wild animals. Or might have been what I'm really into is now the cross-country flights up in Brazil. I mean, it's far from, you're not the only person up there, but I still, right now, it's just, I think it's such a nice thing, flying over the Sertão in the northeastern part of Brazil. I think it's epic flying. Flying in Switzerland, I've had so many nice flights. I really can't break it down to one flight. And it's also not just the flying. For me, paragliding is so much more than just flying. So for me, most of it is combined with traveling and meeting people, getting to know cultures, and seeing the world. It's more than just a flight. There's so many beautiful flights. I can't break it down to one for sure. It's not possible.
It's hard to do that, isn't it? It's like kind of whatever pops in your mind. I was just over flying in Macedonia at the Nordic Open, and Ronnie, I don't know if I can pronounce his last name. Famous Norwegian guy that takes groups down to Mexico every year. And we were at the Monarca years ago. I don't remember what it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I remember, I can kind of place it because I was on an Ice Peak 6. So it must have been like 2011, maybe 2012, somewhere in there. And the start of the race, it was like day 2, day 3, doesn't matter. And the start of the race was just this huge cloud was over like the crazy thermal mesa, and the start was right there. So you couldn't actually start the race without going into the cloud. So you couldn't really start. and so there was it had been a really weird day. Like half the field had already bombed out. It was a strange day. And then this cloud just kind of like, it was right at the treetops, way vertical, went all the way up. And so there was about 8 of us just surfing the side of this cloud, just totally, we didn't give a shit about the race. We weren't even trying to get around it or get to the start, or and Ronnie took all these pictures that he later gave to me, and without the pictures I would have forgotten about it probably, but it was just this like magical moment where you're in a comp, nobody cares, and you've got this wall of white that just went up, thousands and thousands of feet next to your glider. It's magnificent, kind of flying in and out of the wispies. But we have a lot of these moments under a wing, I guess.
Yeah. I actually did the Monarca once. It wasn't called Monarca back then. In 2000, they called it the Copa Milenio, the Millennium's Cup.
Okay.
Yeah, until 2000, I was traveling down from Mexico. Actually, I wasn't traveling. I just kind of thought I'm going to South America. I left everything behind in Switzerland. I was 21, really bored, and thought I may just end up somewhere in South America, and traveled down from Mexico to Ecuador. Took me 1.5 years.
Wow,
with my paraglider.
What a cool adventure.
That was really fun, eh?
Yeah.
All the little shit I did there, I was like, I didn't know anything about flying back then. And I had so many cool little stories, getting picked up by the army in Colombia because I flew straight into guerrilla country and landed there somewhere, and they had an encounter there before, and they escorted me out down to the valley there. Or so many little crazy things. Living in Colombia, anyways, I lived there for three months. I already had a job as English teacher, actually.
Really?
Back then, they took anyone to be an English teacher. So I ended up in Valle like the third week, and there was this cup. I thought, I might as well participate. And I think there were Dash Cohn may have been there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know him, but just, listening to your podcast, all these names, and I thought maybe Eric Reed, if I'm not totally mistaken.
Yeah, probably.
Of course, Miguel and who else was some name? Chris Muller, but Chris Muller, but he doesn't. Yeah. He died a couple of years ago.
Of
Canadian pilot.
Yeah.
He won, of course. Yeah.
Did he? Yeah. That was back in his era for sure.
Yeah. He ripped that comp for sure.
Well, that's it. That's interesting. So why haven't you done comps all these years?
I did in Switzerland we have this junior challenge. It was called back then, and maybe now it's called newcomers challenge. Yep. It's like young pilots kind of being that's the entry to come flying by the Swiss League. I did that. I didn't even do too bad I really didn't have much experience back then. I was together in the group with Stefan Wies and Peter Neuenschwander, really kick-ass pilots.
Yeah.
I think I was too young. I was born in Zurich, in the city, and I just thought spending my weekends somewhere lonely with old men just didn't wasn't so appealing back then. No, really, because I thought of it. That's maybe one thing I kind of regret. I probably should have done it, but there was so many other things as well I wanted to do. Not only flying. Now I would do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, just when you asked me to have this talk, I looked at pictures from many years ago, and there's so many moments which are nice to remember. But probably I can tell you for me the most interesting, most rewarding way of flying, I think, is for me flying in places which at least I don't know at all, or which give me the feeling I'm actually exploring something. I may be the first one flying there and really exploring a country and landing in places where I've never been before, where I don't know the language, not the people, just the whole adventure. It's such a nice thing. Maybe it comes to my mind because it's not so long ago, but it wasn't a big cross-country flight. It was maybe not another record flight, but I think 150 in the Usambara Mountains in Tanzania. And it's actually like a high plateau. You wake up in the morning on that high plateau. It comes up a couple of 100 meters from the plains, pretty straight, and it's flat on top. And there's this tribe living on the top. And in the mornings, it's just all in fog, and it's very humid. You've got these little creeks and waterfalls, and the women going for water in the morning, they all have these very colorful dresses. And we were looking for a launch, and we drove to the edge of that Table Mountain sort of thing. And we looked down over the edge, and it was all covered in fog in the morning. And we were just like on an island in that fog, and we were waiting for the clouds to rise, and then took off there, which was actually completely lee side. But it was fine because it was really in the lee side. We knew we have to fly out off the lee side to the side because we wanted to drive along some sort of road because we really didn't know anything. There probably were roads, but we just didn't know. To fly along that track, we had to fly out of the lee side and then downwind, and it felt like just discovering Tanzania from above, where most likely no one has flown that direction ever before, and landing in small villages. That kind of flying, Gavin, that's just, for me, that's the most fascinating about our sport.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Were you guys in Tanzania, specifically to fly? Were you just kind of figuring it out on the go? I haven't heard of much flying in Tanzania.
No, not at all. Actually, I saw. Well, we had was with another paragliding instructor, and we had a group down in Kenya for 2 weeks before, like Christmas, New Year's. We did Kenya, the Rift Valley, with a group, and I saw pictures. I don't quite remember if they were by Michael Gebert or Felix Wölk or Horacio Llorens. Those guys have been down there, and they have been flying in that area, volcanic area. It's close to Ngorongoro National Park. And it just looked so spectacular. You have these perfect shaped volcanoes, and looking down into the flats, you have all these small craters, and I knew if I'm down there, I got to go and see that. It's just so stunning, such a stunning scenery. Still, I think it's one of most stunning area to fly. We talked to a few locals, and they actually said we must have gotten, well, that's actually about 5 local Tanzanian pilots.
Wow.
But they said one of them used to have a lodge in that area, and he said we must have gotten really lucky because usually it's just super windy there, and we had pretty good conditions. Yeah.
And now, since I met you a year ago in Brazil, this is a good segue into your business. How do you make a paragliding business that you can then sell and travel the world? I think you're quite unique in that respect. I don't know a lot of people that have made money from paragliding. So
Kevin, this sounds like I never have to work again.
No, yeah, you're right. I should. Yeah, you're right. You're just having fun for a little bit of time. I get that. But tell me about let's give me the short version of your history and this business, because you were working with Michael, right?
No. I just know Michael through Andy from Fly with Andy, who's a friend of mine. And I don't know Michael. No, it's I had it with Uli Neunschwander. I've been flying 21 years, and job-wise, I've done a few things, and nothing was actually really satisfying. Then I sat down and thought, well, Dominic, you're I don't know, 27 now, 28. It's about time to do something, not just travel, having fun, doing shit jobs to get a bit of money. I really felt I wanted to do something, job-wise. And I knew like office work is all nothing for me. And I sat down, thought, what are the things I'm good at or what I like? And I figured I like being on holidays. I like flying, and I like drinking beer with people. So conclusion, I need to have a paragliding school, right? Perfect match. And Switzerland is full of paragliding schools. There is good schools, bad schools, like everywhere. But looking at the scene, I thought, at least what I knew, paragliding schools, there's many good schools, but I lacked a bit of, I thought, young people, what are you looking for when you're looking for a hobby? I mean, Switzerland doesn't have any sea. Not even that close, and we have a surfing scene in Switzerland. People actually call themselves surfers. Why is that? Because it's a terribly sexy scene, beautiful girls, beach, and whatever, it's just, I thought a little bit more of that aspect in our scene couldn't do any harm. So just give it a bit more of a lifestyle approach, make a bit more community, more we together doing something really cool in the mountains, and it's actually pretty sexy as well. Well, there's not as many girls, I suppose, but still.
Right. There's always that. Darn it.
I mean, it's an important part in life, I suppose.
Yeah.
And when we started the school, we really decided, both of us were not known acro pilots, we're not competition pilots. We can't make marketing with that, but we thought we can do community, we can create lifestyle, and we're pretty good at that. And that's what I still think. Hey, of course we still were the best paragliding school, of course. But what made us pretty, I can say probably pretty successful, we did it, was definitely the people just liked to be at our shop and have beers and planning trips with us and bringing their friends to barbecue evenings and all sorts of evenings we created, and weekends, and it started working like that. We didn't even have to do too much marketing anymore. People wanted to be part of something, and that was really
was it in Zurich? Where was your base?
We are both from Zurich, so we based our school right in the city, which some people did it before. Actually, we're not the first ones, but that was probably one thing. People didn't have to travel somewhere to go to school. Actually, honestly speaking, it doesn't make a difference if they drive with us to the mountain or if they drive to the mountain and teach there. But probably psychologically, it made a difference for people to have a school right where they live, and being able to come to the shop after work and spending some time getting to know us and all that. And we started in Zurich, and then we made a second hub in Lucerne. You probably know Lucerne, another city in Switzerland. There's a second hub. And also in the city. So that's kind of our approach.
Was there kind of a did you guys specialize in like brand new pilots, or more guiding for more advanced pilots, or were you just kind of the whole gambit?
We definitely started off new pilots. I think probably 2/3 of our turnover was teaching people and selling the equipment to them. And with the years, we did more and more travels and SIVs and cross-country camps, ground handling camps, and just the whole bunch.
One of the recent shows we did with Mitch Riley, we kind of tag teamed. My co-interviewer Nick Hawks asked a question that I'm going to ask you, because I thought it was really good. What is a risk that you wish new pilots wouldn't take? Something you see them doing, either over and over again, or sometimes that leads to, that doesn't necessarily lead to an accident, but just like, that kind of cringe thing we all have at a busy launch, like, oh God. But it could be psychological. It could be gear. It could be, just lack of some skill, but a risk that you see newer pilots or any pilots take that you wish they wouldn't.
One for sure is what we try to explain. People flying in, I guess it depends a little bit where you fly, but in the Alps, I think it's important to have a forgiving wing at the beginning, because it can be strong even where we fly in the pre-Alps. It can be strong in spring, and you just need a solid wing. And there's always the pilots who think they need to have a wing with more performance and just take a very unnecessary risk by doing that before actually knowing all the things that can happen in the air anyways. They change to a wing which is probably a bit too hot for them. That's and it's so easy to avoid that. It's super easy.
Yeah, that's ego, isn't it? And what about a risk that you wish you would see more pilots take?
Many people could easily fly a bit more ambitiously because they actually have it. They're good pilots, but they are too lazy just to get up early in the morning or get the necessary information or to do further education in terms of SIVs, ground handling camps, cross-country camps to actually get them further. It's not exactly a risk, but like a risk just doing more, pushing themselves a little bit more to more ambitious, maybe.
Yeah,
being
a little more
more
aggressive.
ambitious with all due respect, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, in the right places. Yeah, no, I
Exactly.
totally agree with that. Yeah, for sure. Hey, I skipped over this and I shouldn't have. Not to go back to the dark side of things, but I didn't ask you after you broke your back, whenever that was 11 years ago. One of the subjects we've talked a lot about on the show is fear injuries. You know, like coming back from not just the physical side of it, which doesn't sound like it was too bad for you, but the mental side. Was there any kind of leftover? The next time you flew, was there any kind of getting over that? Did you have to do anything specific to kind of find your groove again?
I was actually more scared of I would have that, but it was so clear for me what went wrong because it was obvious. It was totally 100+% my mistake that this happened. So it actually didn't affect my psychological part. So I would almost say not at all, actually.
Interesting.
Once I was able to fly, I flew, the first couple of flights, maybe a little bit scared, but not that much. But now that you talk of it, I actually had a fear injury, but way before that, must have been about 1 year into my, if you can call it, flying career. I did exactly the mistake I told you about. I must have been flying a year, and then I was back in 98 or whatever, there was still a few dodgy gliders out. And I had that I got that high performance glider somewhere cheap or almost for free. And I didn't crash, but like within a week or 2 weeks, I could have easily crashed 3 times. Once in the Cento Valley, I wing recovered very close to the ground after doing anything for hundreds of meters. Then close to Fiesch, a couple of days later, I almost fell onto the glacier because my wing went crazy again. I had no clue what I did. And then again, 3rd time in Engelberg, same thing. I wing recovered, and I must have almost touched the treetops after getting out of that. And after those 3 times, I went back to a school wing and flew that for about 1.5 years. And I think the only reason I kept flying was because at that time my whole circle of friends, they all flew every weekend. We flew and spent time together, and I think that was the only reason I actually kept flying. Otherwise, I would have stopped. I didn't enjoy flying for a year at least, not at all.
Yeah, that wrong gear can really bite you.
Oh yeah, it can. Yeah. So, very unnecessary.
Yeah, it's unnecessary risk, isn't it? Especially these days. God, the gear's so good. Yeah. So the school. So you guys did that for how long, and then how did you exit? Did you sell it to your partner, or?
Yes. Like we had it. Well, it still exists. Right? It always sounds like it didn't exist anymore. I may do some marketing here. It's actually called Paraworld.ch, and it's a perfect, great school. Right?
Great. Yeah, we'll put that link up. We'll put that link up in the show notes.
Yeah, I was there for about 11 years, I think, and I sold my half to my partner, and yeah, he didn't really want me to leave because it's quite a bit of workload you have with for paragliding stand. That's quite a large school. But anyways, I knew I had to go. I just didn't really have that much fun teaching anymore. That was one reason. And by the size the school developed, there was quite a bit of management is too much said, but a lot of organizing stuff and all that. And I did a lot of things which I actually didn't ever wanted to do. And then that was one reason, just not really wanting to do the stuff anymore. I always liked the traveling part and further education, the old camps, and that I still like. But the whole teaching was just a bit organization and teaching. And then, I don't have kids and don't plan to have any. There's not much need for me just to work too much, Then I constantly, I'm confronted with guys like you. So having to look at all the adventures you have and all the cool stuff you do, and I thought, now it's time to do more serious flying myself, and I'm 40 now, and I knew I want to become a good kite surfer. I want to become a better pilot. I may want to become a bit of an acro pilot as well, and it's probably easier if I do it now at the age of 40 than 60. I can still work with 60, but my bones and all that stuff probably is a bit. They work better now, than within 10 or 20 years. I'm sure. And now, having done this for a year, I'm convinced it's a good choice.
Nice. And so, how are you approaching? Because I've been through kind of what you've done it to certain respects in different businesses and that kind of thing. You're obviously a very driven person. You've got a good mind for business. You created this great school. It was successful. I have found in the past when we all do that with the hopes of, ending that and going to do what you're doing, but you have to actually also be mindful about doing what you're doing, or that can become kind of almost like a mouse on a spinning wheel, that it I don't know. I have found that my endless travels there has to be some reason beyond just fun. That's just me personally. I'm not trying to project that onto you, but how are you approaching how you're traveling right now? Is it pretty just loosey-goosey, or is it, like you said, you're kind of learning, you're stepping into acro, learning that, you want to become a better pilot, but are there more missions kind of like Tanzania in the future, or, or are you more throwing a dart?
Well, there's probably a couple of questions in what you just said.
I do that all the time.
I'm not just hanging around. I really tried to train my kite surfing side and my cross country side, my acro side. As I told you before, I may go into a bit of competition flying to learn more. That's one side. I wanted to have more time for the sports side, but also I thought why I stopped working at what we did, which actually, from I knew it back then already when I quit. It's a super nice job. I may not have something that great ever again, but still I could have kept going for years maybe and doing the same and being sort of happy. But man, the world is so big and there's so many approaches to life, so many different ways you can design your life. I just need to see more. Maybe in the future I want to do even stuff which does have nothing to do with paragliding or kiting. It may be something completely different. I just believe there is more than one sort of life we can live. And I if you're from Switzerland, not having kids, I always have the chance to go back and just work. There's absolutely no risk involved, actually. Right. There's no risk involved. It's just throwing everything there and trying stuff out, which I definitely want to do. And if you're not successful, or maybe I want to create another business, there's not really ideas yet. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, I think
stuff start up. Honestly, there's so many people there, they live in fear of something bad might happen in the future if you don't work and save money. And I totally disagree if you're from such a lucky place where we are from, like from Switzerland or the States. We have money, we have options, and we really belong to the lucky few percent on this planet. And it would be almost sad if we don't appreciate the luck we have and
utilize it,
risk things, try out things, and live the life to the fullest, which is all fucking self. Oh, sorry, my language.
Yeah, but I mean, that's I'm not religious, but amen, brother. Yeah, no, totally. I think that's
selfish, the whole thing. maybe, we could do something with a bit of more meaning, as you said as well. I may not be quite ready yet.
No, you can take your time. Like Joseph Campbell said, he never met an interesting 40-year-old that had some that. Wait, how does it go? The most interesting 40-year-olds I've ever met had no idea what they wanted to do with their lives. And that's a great one, because it's like,
we're 40 years old.
Yeah. And you just turned 40, so you've got plenty of time.
I do it 40. I still don't have a clue what I want to do.
Perfect. Joseph Campbell would love you, and he was a very smart man. So fantastic. Hey, okay, again, I'm kind of all over the map here, but I'm just smiling, digging this.
Yeah.
In your years of running that school, because you said something when you created it, even in Switzerland, which we all kind of view as, it's got the API system and it's just much more regulated and strict. And I think of Swiss schools as being very good, but you and I both know that schools around the world, there are good and there are bad, just like you pointed out. And it really depends a lot on who's teaching, and not so much the system that you go through, whether it's USPA, API, or whatever. Yeah. What would you say to the students? Because we have a lot of people that listen to the show that are, very new and that are very much in need of still going to a school, or maybe they haven't even flown yet and they're trying to find a school. How do you find a good school? How do you go about, finding you guys versus the guys down the street that maybe aren't doing as good a job?
There should. I know there should be an easy way, but I think it's not even that easy, because I would have said, ask people who fly. They should give you a feedback on the school they were at. But sometimes that's not even true, If you have a shit school and you're a nice guy, I'm sure your students find your school top and you're the best instructor just because you're a nice guy. That works, actually. That works with doctors. That works with any profession. Sure. So that may not even be the perfect approach, People may say that's a good school and it's not even the case. And I really, in Switzerland, I know schools, they're really good, but the teacher is just a bit of a prick and people don't like him, and therefore people think it's a shit school. It's not, actually. It's just prick of an instructor, but he has maybe a good approach and teaches you a really, really good way of flying. So that may not even be the perfect approach. So I wouldn't even know. I don't know. It's not so easy, but I guess it's still the best, asking as many people as you can find on a feedback on the school they were at. Yeah.
Where should people, so imagine the kind of 200, 300, maybe even 400-hour pilot, maybe just getting into what we commonly call on the show intermediate syndrome. So they're getting pretty good at their home site. They're understanding how to fly in thermals. They're doing some XCs. They're having some success. They're excited. Maybe they're stepping up to a C wing or something. Where do you like to see those people focus most? Is it SIV? Is it training? Where do you like to, where do you point those people? What direction do you point those people? Because that's a dangerous part. And in my mind, that's kind of the most dangerous place that people get in this sport. Just beyond ignorance.
Like education-wise, I really think that's been in your show many times before, and I mostly agree. I think you can't do enough ground handling. It doesn't cost you anything. You can do it anywhere with a little bit of wind, and just playing with your wing as much as you can just gives you so much more safety at takeoff, in flight, and all that. I think that's anyone can do that. SIVs, I think. Yep, absolutely. Good approach. And it's been on your show as well before, to really master the difficult maneuvers. You've been talking a lot about stalls. And I think to really pull a stall in real conditions, you need to practice it a lot, man. I think you really need to practice it a lot. I think that's maybe not even the most important fact about an SIV. I think SIV, the first one should be more getting to know your glider, getting confident with your glider. Maybe if you don't fly a top knot, a really high performance glider, getting to know that many times it's pretty good if you just let it do its thing instead of overreacting. I'm not talking about C+ gliders, And what is really important, and I really saw that with myself, is just the fact of having pulled that reserve once, knowing what's happening when you pull the reserve. It's obviously not a difficult thing to do, but it really, even me, it changed my mindset to towards that rescue so much. You've seen it once, you're terribly nervous before you pull that reserve the first time over a lake, life vest, rescue boat and everything, completely safe, but you're nervous. That's exactly what's so important about doing that once, just to the second time when you may need it, actually not being nervous, being confident that thing works, I pull it and I'm most likely safe. That's super important to do that, I think. Yeah.
That's great.
Then flying wise, what can you do to stay safe? I think if you can, it's really good if you can surround yourself with pilots who are better than yourself, who have more experience, and go fly with them and have them give you as much advice as possible. Because every flying day is different. Conditions are always different. Flying in Fiesch, I'm just saying Fiesch because it's a known place. Flying in Fiesch can be super easy, but it can be super difficult at a day after. It depends so much on conditions and everything. And that's just so much experience. Flying in a paraglider is just, and judging conditions has so much to do with experience. So the best thing you can do is just go with people who have much more experience than yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I asked you about the risk that you wish pilots would take. That was where I felt like, we often talk about like where you have maybe a breakthrough or you have an aha moment, the light bulb goes off. For me, it was with travel. When I really started flying a lot of different places, just you may not even feel like you're getting that much better, but you really are. When you break away from your home site and you start flying it, and in the Alps, there's so many sites that maybe people there just do it naturally. You follow the weather, but I think that's a big one. That's a risk that I wish more people would take is going and flying new places, because the air density is different, the weather's different, how you get the weather is different, the community is different, so you're automatically being challenged by all these little things that you may not even register.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's,
I agree.
That's, if you have the time and you have the funds to do it, that's one that I would I wish more people did. I mean, a lot of people do, but I think that's a good one. This migration to Colombia and Mexico and Brazil and stuff in the winter for all the Northern Hemisphere pilots is great to see. I think that's really good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you kind of look out, give me your kind of 1 year, where do you see yourself in a year? If you see yourself anywhere, or is it just kind of just day by day, right? And it sounds like it's kind of day by day.
Sort of day by day. Actually, I thought a year ago, after a year, I'm probably bored and I'm starting to look for something to do. And now it's a year later and I'm not bored at all. And there's so much still to learn. So I've got a bit of a plan. I'll head to Brazil now, and I'll go up to the northeast again where we met, not Quixadá, but going with the winch, where the Swiss league has done awesome flights last year on the winch in Brazil, which just gives you this extra, I'd say, 1.5 hours in the morning. Since you don't have those, those hills in the back of Quixadá takeoff where you don't want to end up because you're bombing out in those winds.
Yeah, that's the way to do it down there.
On the winch, you go early, you just hang on to a cloud and you can just take off early, right? And that's what I want to do. And once over in Brazil, it's just same, you're a kite surfer up there. It's just kite surf heaven. You've got a huge coast with perfect winds every day. I want to do a long downwind on my own, basically just me, my kite gear, maybe 2 pants and 2 shirts and a repair kit, pump, and just go down the coast, and if I like a place, stay a couple of days, stay there, kite, continue down the coast and explore the coast in Brazil by myself. I want to do that. Afterwards, I may go to Mexico and then go to the Monarca and see if I like competition flying or not. I'll be kiting with my girlfriend in Mexico, probably in Yucatan or Baja California. Yeah, next year, most likely focus, if I like it, on a bit of competition flying, and I want to further improve my poor acro skills. I may go to El Hierro, the Canary Islands,
sure,
in March, which is a known place to do that, and hope to. It's cool. I liked it. I didn't know I like it so much, but it's just it makes such a difference just doing so many stalls and improving your. I just noticed it after. Even for me, flying 20 years after Organyà and flying in central Spain, cross country, I was not even close to being scared a single time, and flying in pretty strong conditions, and as people said, also quite rough conditions at times. I just didn't affect me at all after 6 weeks of acro flying. It was just all peanuts, That's just, that effect alone is great.
Yeah, I think as these guys, we start to see these guys like Pal Tackett's and Theo, and these guys crossing over into cross country. They're so competent under a wing that they're really a threat to us lazier cross country pilots.
Manual or wing is no question to them. They can put 100% of focus on tactics and strategy, and the wing, it's just, it'll fly for sure.
Exactly.
They don't have to focus on that.
Exactly. They're never worried about that. And I think that, I'm almost, I used to say that, flying XC without doing regular SIV was just asking for trouble, and now I really think that we should step it up, and that should just become part of, every pilot's lexicon. You don't have to be Pal Tackett's or Theo. In fact, most people will never even get close, including myself. But, I just did it. I just spent a week over the lake here up in Oregon doing a bunch of acro training. And it's just, like you said, it's such a massive confidence boost. It just helps so much. You just don't think about, the little stuff that would make you nervous and make your heart rate go up goes away. And then you can let your subconscious do all the work. And it's such a massive safety factor, I think.
Yeah. So how's your acro career going?
Well, it'll never be. Number one, it's not a career. It never will be. But you know what? I just actually, little plug here, but I was on the new Niviuk E-Gravity. So I've been hearing from, Andre Prochaska, all the guys, all the acro, Jedis that I've had on the show, they all say the same thing. You do not want to learn acro on a freestyle or an acro wing. Learn it on a B.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah. And so I've been on the F-Gravity, which is a terrific freestyle wing, but I've been on that since 2012. I did an acro clinic with Jockey out in Olu Deniz. It was one of his SIV clinics, but he brought in a guy to teach me acro, Johan, and that was great. But it was interesting actually. That week, the first day, he said, "Hey, what do you want to learn? Where are you?" And I was like, "Well, I'm super comfortable with stalls and deep stalls and sat, but I'd love to learn helis." And he's like, "No chance. We're not even going to try." And I was like, "Wait, why? I want to learn helis." Because he's like, "We got a week. You're going to be so disappointed. You're going to be so discouraged. You might get a couple just because of dumb luck." But he's like, "There's no way you're going to nail deep stall and start heliing in a week. Like, let's do dynamic stuff." And so we did. And so, but I have been struggling, to get heli now for years. Because I do it like 1 week a year, so I don't live in a place where I can practice acro, but also because I was on the F-Gravity. It's just way too bitey. I was constantly getting spun up and twisted and curvated, and it's just too spicy. And so Niviuk, and a bunch of manufacturers are doing it. Gradient, Ozone, they're all making these kind of learning acro wings, and so they just released this E-Gravity. So I was on that, and God, dude, it was so nice. It was just mellow. You cannot screw up stalls. You just can't. I never had a cravat. I never twisted up. Was I nailing helis? Absolutely not. But, it's just got a much wider range for screwing up. You can sit in deep stall way more comfortably. But it's not, it still has the thick lines and it's still got longer lines, so it still has more energy. So it's not like learning it on a B. It's a B wing. It's certified as a B, but it was delicious, man. It was really super fun. Like you'd hit the beach and be psyched for the next run, not trembling. Which half the time before I was kind of trembling. I was like, fuck, what did I just do wrong? The glider was always one step ahead, whereas this time it was like I was ahead of the glider, which was really nice. It was just comfortable.
Yeah. Some of these freestyle gliders, I think they're great for most dynamic things. But talking about the F Gravity, that wing actually is at the 2, I think it was, actually scared me. It made me not go acro for quite a while, because I tried deep stalls and helis. Every time heli exit, I jumped after the wing, and since it's got pretty long brake range, I just felt so scared. Now I would say if someone would ask me to recommend an approach, I don't know that the E-Gravity, that kind of wings, I would have said just take one of the easier and bite your acro wings. Just take an easy one. I'm not going to mention brands now, but an easy acro wing, just in a rather big size, and you've got a very safe and good approach, I'd say, because you still have short brake range, but it's not so bitey, and it just works. They just work nowadays, and exactly. I think if you really want to learn acro, you just really got to take your time. Otherwise,
exactly. You really do. You really have to take your time.
You need time,
and have the respect for the technical stuff. Like like you said, the dynamic stuff on the F Gravity was so fun. But you pay for mistakes. It's so easy to go into that wing or loop through the lines, or when it jumps, it wants to jump, and because it's a freestyle wing, that's what they're built to do. And really tough to build. I wasted a lot of time actually trying to learn that on that wing, and my acro partner here had been saying that the last couple of years. He's like, dude, just get a low B, it'll be so much easier, and that was genius. That's been really nice. So Dominic, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This has just been a total blast, and to catch up with you. I'm kind of jealous that you're going down to Toe in Brazil. I'd like to jump on that. That's a pretty special place. And you're right; those guys. That's the way to do it. There, you get a couple hundred kilometers more runway, and you can just go so big. So I hope that goes really well for you. I'll be watching you on the XC Find, and.
Right.
But thanks for your time, man, and I'll enjoy your time there in Tarifa kite surfing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, and hopefully I hope to get over to the States at some point in my life as well. May catch you in there.
Oh, you'd love it, man. We big air and big high base, and you'd dig it. I'd love to have you over here and show you around. It's a pretty special place.
Cool. Well, thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Dominic. Talk soon. Bye.
Thank you. Catch you later. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that. What a cool conversation with a very good dude. That was a lot of fun. I hope you got something out of that. As always, all we ask for is $1 a show. This is a listener-supported podcast, and I've gone into this in the past, why we do it that way instead of using sponsors. I hate sponsors, and not my personal sponsors, but sponsoring podcasts like this. I just don't like listening to all that goofy stuff in the beginning, and I fear that if we do that, then you're wondering if I'm trying to sell mattresses, how authentic these conversations are. So we're skipping all that and just relying on you. And if you can't do it financially, totally understand that. And but there are many other ways you can support it. You can share it with your friends. You can blog about it. You can put it up on the social medias. You can talk about it on the way up to launch. So most of all, I just want to make sure that you're getting something out of it. And so if it's something you are, let us know and help support us. And you can find the links to do that on cloudbasedmayhem.com. And you can just reach out and let me know if you've got a suggestion for somebody you want on the show or a topic that we haven't been covering. Also reach out in that way. We'll try to be really flexible with that. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.